The night was cold and heavy with the promise of snow. In her small Manhattan apartment, Elizabeth sat at her cluttered desk, her phone buzzing again and again beside a pile of half-finished tax reports. The screen glowed with more than 10 missed calls from her mother, Janet Walker. Elizabeth exhaled, the kind of deep sigh that came not from frustration but from exhaustion, the kind that had settled into her bones after years of trying to please everyone but herself. December had only just begun, yet her workload had already doubled. She was running numbers for multiple clients, her deadlines crowding her like ghosts in the dark. Finally, she picked up her phone and pressed redial. Her mother's voice answered on the first ring, cheerful and commanding all at once. "Elizabeth, darling, I want to have a big Christmas celebration at home this year, with all the relatives. You'll buy presents for everyone, won't you? You're so good at choosing gifts." Her tone was sweet, but Elizabeth heard the familiar manipulation beneath it. "Mom, I'm really busy this year," Elizabeth said softly, rubbing her temples. Papers and invoices covered the desk like snowdrifts, a reflection of her chaotic mind. Before she could continue, her mother's voice shifted instantly, the feigned sobs, the trembling sighs that Elizabeth had grown up hearing. "You're all I can count on. Don't you care about your family?" There it was again, that weaponized guilt. It had worked when she was 16, 22, and 30, and it worked now, too. Elizabeth's eyes burned, the weight of 10 years of emotional debt pressed against her chest. "All right," she said after a pause, her voice quiet. "How many people?" "Oh, let's see, about 15, maybe 16. Feel free to spend whatever you need. I know you'll pick wonderful things. You always do." Elizabeth did the math automatically, $50 each. That was at least $750. Add her mother's monthly emergency support, and she'd have to drain her savings again. "Got it," she murmured. When the call ended, her phone buzzed once more, this time, a message from her sister, Caitlin. "Don't forget my present, the new Louis Vuitton bag. You absolutely can't forget." Elizabeth turned the phone face down and leaned back in her chair. Snowflakes were beginning to drift past her window, their glow catching in the pale city lights. It was snowing, just like that night, 10 years ago. The night her father left. She could still see it clearly, her mother collapsing in the hallway, mascara streaking her cheeks, crying, "That man never gave us anything." And Elizabeth, young and scared, had believed it. She'd chosen her mother's tears over her father's silence, and she hadn't spoken to him since. Now, as the snow thickened, the city outside blurred into silver fog. Elizabeth blinked hard, forcing herself back to work, but her hands wouldn't move. A week later, the mall overflowed with shoppers wrapped in scarves and glittering lights. Christmas carols floated from every speaker, cheerful and relentless. Elizabeth stood in a long line, her arms aching under bags of gifts, a cashmere stole for Aunt Martha, a cookbook for Cousin Jennifer, toys for the children, and a necklace for her mother. As she turned the corner toward another boutique, she froze. Her father, Richard Walker, stood near a display of men's watches, his hair grayer now, his posture slightly bent. He held a small box in his hand, examining it with the same gentle focus she remembered from childhood, the way he used to inspect her school drawings, pretending to be an art critic. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, the mall's noise seemed to fade away. Then he spoke. "How have you been?" His voice was warm but cautious, like someone speaking into a memory that might break. Elizabeth's throat tightened. "I'm fine," she replied, her tone polite but distant. He nodded, searching her face for something, forgiveness, maybe, or just a trace of the daughter he'd lost. But she couldn't stay. She turned away, her heart pounding, pretending to study a display of ornaments. As she walked away, she didn't notice the small box in his hands, the one he would later buy, wrap carefully, and tuck into his coat pocket, hoping one day he'd find the courage to give it to her. The following weeks blurred together. Elizabeth spent every evening hunched over her laptop, working late into the night, trying to balance deadlines with endless errands. Her apartment became a maze of gift wrap, ribbons, and receipts. The dining table was buried under shopping bags and shipping boxes. Every item she wrapped carried a strange mix of love and obligation. She didn't even know what joy looked like anymore, only duty. For the family, she whispered to herself each night. It had become her mantra, her armor, her excuse. By the time Christmas Eve arrived, the world outside was blanketed in white. Her mother's home in Greenwich gleamed like a mansion from a postcard, every inch decorated with care. White fairy lights lined the roof, golden reindeer glowed on the lawn, and a massive wreath hung above the door. Elizabeth parked her car at the curb. The back seat was buried beneath perfectly wrapped presents, each one labeled with a name in her neat handwriting. Before stepping out, she caught her reflection in the rearview mirror. The red cashmere sweater she'd chosen looked warm but understated. Her grandmother's pearl necklace caught the faint light. She looked composed, but her eyes told another story. Inside, laughter echoed through the windows. "Where's Elizabeth?" someone said. "She's still not here? I hope she bought what I asked for this time. Last year she completely missed the mark." Elizabeth gripped the handles of the gift bags tighter and pressed the doorbell. Her mother, glamorous in a gold blouse and diamond necklace, opened the door. "Finally, you're here." Behind her stood Caitlin, her sister, in a designer dress with a brand new Gucci bag slung over her shoulder. "Oh, is this all?" Janet frowned slightly, glancing at the presents. "There's more in the car," Elizabeth said quietly. Caitlin brushed past her. "You got my Louis Vuitton, right? This year's holiday collection?" Elizabeth forced a small smile. "You'll see." The living room sparkled with warmth and laughter. A towering Christmas tree reached toward the ceiling, wrapped in white lights and gold ribbons. The scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. Aunt Martha waved from the sofa. "Elizabeth, dear, you've outdone yourself again. Your gifts are always so thoughtful." Cousin Jennifer chimed in. "You're amazing. Doing all this while working so hard. We don't deserve you." Elizabeth smiled politely, her thoughts drifting. The entire display, the lights, the chatter, the praise, felt hollow. Every kind word was followed by another expectation. Another invisible weight pressed onto her shoulders. Dinner was lavish, as always. Honey-baked ham, casseroles, pies, and sparkling wine filled the table. Her mother proudly announced, "I had everything specially ordered." Elizabeth realized what that meant. The bill would be forwarded to her later. When dinner ended, Janet clinked her glass and smiled brightly. "Now, it's time for the presents. Our very own Elizabeth has once again been Santa for everyone. Let's give her a big hand." Applause filled the room. Caitlin squealed, ripping open her box. "Yes, the Louis Vuitton. Oh, this will look amazing on Instagram." One by one, the relatives unwrapped their gifts, laughter, cheers, and selfies filling the room. Elizabeth sat quietly on the sofa, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. She watched them all, the smiles, the sparkles of wrapping paper, and waited. Just maybe, this year, someone had thought of her too. But as the pile of presents disappeared, none bore her name. When the last ribbon had fallen to the floor, she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper, "Mom, where's mine?" The room stilled. Her mother smiled as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Oh, we didn't get you anything, sweetheart. You bought everyone else's, didn't you? After all, you're the family Santa." Elizabeth blinked. For a moment, she didn't breathe. Caitlin laughed. "Santa wanting presents? That's hilarious." She snapped another photo with her bag, captioning it with a glitter emoji. A few relatives chuckled awkwardly. Aunt Martha looked down at her lap, unable to meet Elizabeth's eyes. Elizabeth stood slowly. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "I need some fresh air." No one stopped her. Outside, snow had begun to fall again, soft, slow, endless. She got into her car and turned on the heater, resting her forehead against the steering wheel. "Why is it always me?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Through the windshield, the glow of her mother's house blurred behind the snow. Inside, the laughter continued, muffled, distant, unreal. Tears traced down her cheeks, warm against the cold night. She looked at the stack of receipts in her purse, the maxed-out credit card, the sacrifices no one ever saw. Her phone buzzed again, a message from her mother. "Don't forget to pick up dessert for tomorrow's brunch." Elizabeth stared at the text, her hands trembling. Then she turned off the phone, placed it face down on the seat, and let out a shaky laugh, half sob, half relief. For the first time, she didn't reply. Elizabeth quietly glanced into the rearview mirror. Her perfectly applied makeup was beginning to smear, the faint lines beneath her eyes revealing more than fatigue. They carried years of quiet exhaustion. The glittering reflection of Christmas lights shimmered on her windshield, casting fractured colors over her face. Last year, the year before, and the one before that, when had it all started? When had Christmas stopped feeling magical? Once upon a time, she had loved it. The laughter, the smell of cinnamon cookies, the sound of carols from the old radio. But now, Christmas had become a ritual of performance. She was the family Santa, the invisible giver who received nothing in return. What had begun as joy had transformed into expectation, and expectation into burden. She turned off the engine but didn't step out. The car's heater hummed softly, keeping her cocooned in its artificial warmth. Outside, the laughter from her sister Caitlin's house spilled into the frosty air. Elizabeth watched silhouettes through the window, her mother's familiar gestures, Caitlin's exaggerated poses for her phone camera. Another perfect family Christmas. Without her, it would all fall apart. She adjusted her lipstick, fixed her eyeliner, and whispered to her reflection, "Just one more night, then it's over." When she finally opened the car door, the chill bit through her coat. She stepped out, her boots crunching over the icy driveway, and smiled the smile everyone expected from her. "Merry Christmas," she said softly. She wasn't sure who those words were meant for, her family, herself, or the hollow silence that followed them. 3 days later, in her apartment on Manhattan's Upper East Side, Elizabeth sat by the window overlooking Central Park. Snow blanketed the trees below, muffling the city's usual noise. Normally, her apartment was immaculate, a reflection of her discipline. But this morning, her desk was a battlefield of scattered papers, coffee-stained receipts, and unfinished reports. She had tried to drown out the ache of Christmas night with work, but the images kept finding her. Her sister's Instagram post flaunting a new designer bag. Her mother's cheerful message, "It was such a lovely party, wasn't it?" Lovely, for everyone except her. The heating system creaked and hissed, struggling against the winter cold. Frost patterns spread across the window panes like delicate lace. Elizabeth wrapped her hands around a mug of tea, its steam fogging her glasses, as she stared blankly at the tax presentation glowing on her laptop screen. Then she saw it, the small blue light blinking on her answering machine. She pressed play. "Elizabeth," a familiar voice said. Her hand froze. "This is Richard Walker, your father. I need to talk to you. Some issues came up in my health checkup. I'd like to meet. Please contact me." The message ended. For a long time, Elizabeth didn't move. The voice she hadn't heard in 10 years still carried that calm, deep tone, steady, reassuring, painfully familiar. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the skyline in molten gold and crimson. Reflections from nearby towers danced like fire across her walls. Her mind raced. 10 years ago, he had vanished. Her mother's words had been final, "That man abandoned us," and Elizabeth, 20 and heartbroken, had believed her. But then, there had been that chance encounter at the mall 3 years ago. The tired but kind man who'd looked at her with such longing. Now, she realized, it had been him, her father. That night, she lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. The city outside buzzed faintly, taxis honking in the distance. At 2:00 a.m., she sat up, grabbed her phone, and whispered into the dark, "I can meet tomorrow." The next morning, she dressed carefully, a navy pantsuit, modest pearl earrings, low heels. Everything about her was precise, professional, the kind of woman who had rebuilt her life on self-discipline. When she arrived at the high-rise in Midtown, the name Walker Construction gleamed on the glass doors. Inside, a receptionist led her to a conference room overlooking the Hudson River. Richard Walker stood by the window, older now, his once dark hair touched by gray. He turned, eyes warm with disbelief. "Thank you for coming," he said. Elizabeth nodded, trying to remain composed. "You mentioned health issues. What happened?" He smiled faintly. "My heart's not as strong as it used to be. They're recommending surgery. But that's not why I wanted to see you." He hesitated, his voice growing gentler. I want you to take over the company. Elizabeth blinked. What? Why me? We haven't seen each other in 10 years. Because I know who you are, he said. I've watched you, your promotions, your work at Deloitte, your integrity. Her composure faltered. You've been watching me? I also know about the money you've been sending to your mother and sister every month, $2,000. Her heart stopped. How do you know about that? I've been keeping an eye on you. I asked my lawyers to check in, just to make sure you weren't struggling. He sighed, reaching into a drawer. You've been helping them out of guilt, but you don't need to. They've been receiving full alimony and child support for years, over $5,000 a month. Your mother lied. Elizabeth felt her knees weaken. A lie? She whispered. All those years? She told you I'd abandoned you, but I sent you letters, gifts, every birthday. Did you ever receive any? Her throat tightened. No, I never got anything. Tears blurred her vision. All those lonely birthdays, the empty mailbox, her mother's words echoing like truth. Her father reached across the table and took her hand. His touch was warm, real. I've missed you every day, Elizabeth. For the first time in a decade, she didn't pull away. The truth unveiled. That night, Elizabeth sat before her laptop, the glow of the screen illuminating her tear-streaked face. Line after line of data appeared, wire transfers, account numbers, purchases, her mother's lavish shopping sprees, luxury vacations, 5-star hotels, all funded by her payments. The truth was as cold as the winter wind outside. The family Santa had been nothing more than a convenient source of money. Elizabeth turned off the laptop. Her reflection in the dark window looked different, harder, steadier. This time, she would not play the fool. A new year, a new Elizabeth. Early January, for the first time in her decade-long career, Elizabeth requested a proper vacation. Her boss was shocked but didn't argue. Manhattan was caught in a severe cold wave when she arrived at Walker Construction. Over the next 2 weeks, she stopped all payments to her mother and sister and immersed herself in corporate restructuring. By February, her sharp financial strategies had revitalized the company. Employees began addressing her as CFO Walker. Her father's health improved with treatment, and for the first time in years, he smiled without pain. Then came the inevitable call. Elizabeth, it's your mother. Janet's voice cracked through the phone. This month's payment, it hasn't arrived. I'm sorry, Mom. I have new plans. I won't have spare money for a while. What are we supposed to do? Elizabeth's voice was calm. You'll have to figure it out yourself. Click. Her phone erupted with angry messages over the next weeks, accusations, guilt trips. Please. Elizabeth saved everyone. Her father's lesson echoed in her mind. Keep all evidence. The confrontation. March came. One Sunday morning, just after yoga, a loud knock shook her door. Elizabeth, open up. Her mother and sister stood in the hallway, faces pale with anger. Janet's fashionable arrogance was gone, replaced by desperation. Caitlin's designer bag dangled uselessly at her side. What do you mean by this? Janet shouted. Working for that man's company? You betrayed us. At that moment, another voice came from behind them. Elizabeth, I brought yesterday's contract. Richard stepped into the hall. The air froze. 10 years of silence pressed between the former couple. Janet's voice cracked. You stole my daughter. Richard's tone was calm. I wasn't allowed to see her. Who stole from whom? Elizabeth opened her laptop, showing them everything, the intercepted letters, the forged excuses, the financial records of their extravagant lives. Janet's knees buckled. Caitlin stared in stunned silence. You deceived me, Elizabeth said quietly. I believed every word, but no more. Her mother wept, but Elizabeth's expression didn't waver. From now on, I'll live my life, my way. Outside, spring rain began to fall. The seasons were changing, and so was she. Christmas Eve, 1 year later. The penthouse glowed with warmth and golden light. A soft jazz tune played in the background. The Christmas tree shimmered with ornaments Elizabeth had chosen herself. Mind if I check the turkey? Michael, now her partner in life and in work, called from the kitchen. Yes, please, she replied with a genuine smile. Her father approached. holding a bottle of vintage Bordeaux. From the year you were born, he said softly. They toasted to new beginnings. Meanwhile, her mother and sister had built new lives in suburban Connecticut, modest, but honest ones. Janet worked part-time at a library, rediscovering her passion for storytelling. Caitlin managed a boutique, finding pride in her own effort. That evening, Richard surprised Elizabeth with two guests, Janet and Caitlin. Both entered shyly, dressed simply, holding small packages. "Merry Christmas," Janet said, voice trembling. Inside the boxes were handmade gifts, a knitted scarf, a family photo album. And then, a small jewelry box. Inside lay a simple diamond ring, her grandmother's. "It's yours," Janet whispered. It's time it returned to the right hands. Elizabeth felt tears rising, not of pain, but of peace. They raised their glasses together. "To true family bonds," Richard said. Outside, snow fell softly over Manhattan, the world quiet, shimmering, forgiving. Elizabeth looked out the window, her reflection glowing faintly in the glass. This Christmas, she was free, no longer the giver who forgot herself, but a woman who had learned that family, love, and forgiveness were gifts that had to flow both ways.